The Cricut Party Foil wasn't immediately my favorite thing, as I struggled with it quite a bit in the beginning, as it was a tricky one for me to get right. And if you're struggling with this one too, then definitely be sure to watch the entire video for all of the tricks that I learned while working with Cricut Party Foil. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. Now, the most popular use for party foil is confetti, and because the party foil comes in so many different colors and styles, it's a really nice thing to make for your party. And we're going to set up a project and cut the confetti in Cricut Design Space. Now, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind when you start working with a party foil. Number one, you need to make sure that you have a very sticky mat. You can probably get away with a lightly used green mat, but in this case, the stickier your mat is, the better. The party foil is quite thick and it's quite a hard material. So if your mat is not sticky, the blade is going to drag across the material and it's going to lift it up, it's going to crumple, and it's going to destroy your project. Or at least that particular section won't cut properly. But if you do have a very sticky mat, the party foil will stick down properly onto your mat and it won't move while it's cutting. Because we have to cut with a very high pressure, any movement of the party foil will compromise what it is that you're trying to cut. So personally, I would say either use a green standard grip or a purple strong grip mat for party foil. You also need to make sure that you have a very sharp blade. Make sure to clean it just before you start with your project with some rubbing alcohol. Stabbing your blade into a ball of tinfoil will only clean it, it will not sharpen it, so dispel that myth, please. You can also use a 12 by 20 format for party foil, which is very nice, especially if you need a lot of it, because you can cut much longer lengths. But you can cut this with any machine, so if you have a Joy, you're still able to cut party foil. When working with party foil, you also want to make sure that your design isn't too intricate. If your mat is very sticky, you should be able to handle relatively intricate designs, but if your design is very, very tiny, like under a millimeter wide or so, you may struggle to cut that on the party foil. So if you are struggling, maybe try and either increase the size a little bit or change your cut settings. And when it comes to cutting the party foil, when in doubt, increase your pressure. You can even try add an extra pass or two. If you are finding this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, as it helps to spread to other people who might need this information. Now, in Cricut Design Space, we're going to think about what kind of confetti we want. And it can literally be anything. You can go into the images section and you can type in confetti. Now, this confetti that we have here is a perfect example. So Jennifer Starr, thank you for making an awesome access image. So I'm going to click on it and add it to my canvas. Now, if I look at the size of this one, it is quite big, so I do want to scale it down a little bit because I want to have nice small confetti pieces. We want to test the limits of the party foil a little bit here. I'm also going to right click and duplicate this so that we can have more than one. I'm going to line them up a little bit and overlap them a tiny bit. And then I'm going to right click and attach to make sure that they stay together so we can cut it exactly like that on the mat, although it doesn't really matter too much. Now, one of the things that I always do before I cut party foil is I make sure to change the cut settings. Like I mentioned before, you need to make sure that you are increasing the pressure on the cut settings, or you are at least doing a test cut before you cut a project like this. Because for me, when I first cut party foil, it barely even went through on the default settings. So I had to increase my cut settings very high in order to cut the party foil. So I'm going to click on the three lines at the top left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to manage custom materials, connect it to my machine. So I'm going to be using my Maker 3. I'm then going to scroll down until I find the Cricut Party Foil. Now we can see here the settings that I have the party foil on. I have it on pressure 310, 2 passes on the fine point blade. These are not the default settings. This is what I have realized works for me on my machine. So you will see something different, and you can test these settings out if you want to, But please remember that every machine is different and your settings may be different to mine. Maybe the pressure might be too high for your machine. My machine's pressure is always a little bit lower than normal, so I always have to increase the pressure settings for pretty much any of the default settings that I have in Cricut Design Space, which is a little bit annoying, but I always do my test cuts, so it's fine. So if you want to change your cut settings, click on Edit, and you can drag the green dot to the left if you want to decrease the pressure, or to the right if you want to increase the pressure. So I'm going to leave mine on 310, and this number up here is the number of times it will do the same cut. So if you're cutting a circle, if you leave it off, it'll cut the circle only once. If you change it to 2, it'll cut the circle once, and then it'll cut the circle again in exactly the same space. So you won't have to worry about it being misaligned or anything like that. So for party foil, I like to have mine on. Even though it'll take a little bit longer, I find it safer to err on the side of caution. And when you have changed the settings, you can just click Save. We can now exit the custom materials that we've saved to that machine. And remember, they are machine specific, so you might need to do this on more than one machine. And we're going to click Make It. I'm going to be cutting on a mat. Going to click Continue. And I'm going to search for my material. Going to select the material, click Done, and then we're going to hop over there to cut our party foil. And once you have loaded the party foil onto your mat, make sure to use your brayer to bray it down really well. And then once you've done that, we can load it into the machine to cut. You might want to make yourself a cup of tea because this might take a while. And it's now all done, and we can see that because there's pretty much confetti everywhere. So we know that the cut settings have worked, and we can unload and enjoy the carnage. Now, of course, normally when it comes to these kinds of things, we flip them over and remove the mat from the vinyl, but in this case we don't have to. So we can just pull it off like that. See how pretty much all of the little bits stay? Almost all of them. Put that off to the side for a moment. And we just clean off the party foil. Now, interestingly enough, there is a strip here. It's almost like it lost pressure throughout the cut. I've heard that this is a known issue with Design Space at the moment, so hopefully this will be fixed in a future update. For now, there's nothing we can do about that. At least you can see that not all my projects go perfectly either. And what we're going to do now is just gently scrape off the confetti with our scraper from the mat. So I like to put the confetti out of the way and use my scraper or my spatula or whatever you want to call it and gently lift them off. I do find this a little easier if I have the mat standing up so that it can kind of fall down off the sticky parts, and we can see just how beautifully it actually cut. Well, most of it. Now, if you want to know how to make chip packet wrappers, check out this video that I made that'll show you exactly how. And remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon.